We've got Chicago, way up here, my hometown. Go Blue Jays. Toronto right up here. We've got New York Yankees over here. And down here we've got Florida. So these are ballparks. Okay, that's all we're talking about here. Major League Baseball ballparks. Now, we also have headquarters. Headquarters is in New York. And headquarters is where all the hearings are currently happening. Okay? Now, there are other stakeholders in this engagement that we haven't talked about. We've got union headquarters. Many people from the union are involved in these negotiations. We have agents. Agencies are spread throughout America. There's thousands of them. We're just going to keep it simple and put a couple of agencies up here. Those agencies, they have lawyers, right? They're part of the ecosystem as well. All of these people are physical locations right now across America that need to gather together using travel for these hearings. So let's draw this out for a second. This is important to understand how much travel and lost time we're talking about. So we've got some people, this is a hypothetical situation. Chicago Cubs, which are from here, are playing in San Francisco. A player from San Francisco, who's in San Francisco now, who's a member of the Cubs, has to attend a hearing in New York. So that player has to fly all the way across country to headquarters, which, as any of you know who do cross-country travel, that's a lost day right there, right? Ownership from that team, the Cubs, has to be at that hearing. So people from Chicago, and the red is travel because red is bad, need to fly into headquarters as well. The player's agent needs to be there. The player's lawyer needs to be there. Oh, you know what? I forgot to include a couple of pieces on my, down here in the Caribbean or in Florida, that's the medical facility, because all the teams have medical facilities down in the south, and we have a doctor who needs to testify at this, who's employed by the team. So they're coming up from the medical facility. It's quite a bit of travel. Okay, you can imagine that when we're taking all of these people who are making a lot of money, very expensive, and bringing them all into New York for a 2-hour hearing, all these people are losing time and all these people are losing salaries. But this player is losing 3 days on the field. So let's start talking about these costs. The travel costs, okay? Give me a second here. Each one of these hearings costs about $1 million. Let's say we're doing 30 a year, which is what you're approximately doing. That's just travel and coordination time. We're losing $30 million on just that. Okay, can you guys see that okay? Yep? All right, good. You're losing $30 million on just that. That's not the salaries, that's just the travel and coordination of all of that. But I want to give you some background on the business of baseball right now so you can understand where the rest of these costs come from, because it's not something as finite as travel or salary. So, let's talk about how much players make. The average player in Major League Baseball makes $15 to $18 million a year. That's something called the qualifying offer. It's a very standard number in the game. Star players, most players are making $20, $25 million. There's 184 days in a baseball season, 162 games, so there's 22 off days. That's it. This isn't basketball or hockey where a player plays once or twice a week. They play 7 times a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 8 when there's double headers. That player is making somewhere between $160 to $1 million a game. $160K to $1 million a game. A starting pitcher, $800,000 to $1 million. A starting infielder, outfielder, batter, $100,000 to $200,000. Okay, so we're talking about 2 or 3 days heading back and forth. We're talking about 400, 500, up to $1 million in lost salaries for every player salaries for every hearing. So that's another 20 to 30 million that we lose in the actual player salaries. Excuse me. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about players being on the field. Okay, this is really important. Every year in baseball, 3 to 5 teams will miss the playoffs by 1 to 2 games. It's a very tight sport. At the end of the season, you'll have a bunch of teams that just narrowly miss the playoffs. Now, in baseball, you've got to prepare for the playoffs 2 or 3 months in advance. Okay? So, if I am going to make the playoffs or think I'm going to make the playoffs, I'm going to spend a lot of money in investment. I'm going to invest in stadium events, in ticketing. I'm going to invest in staff. I'm going to invest in merchandising. I'm going to invest in advertising. I'm going to make millions, potentially hundreds of millions in investments into this playoff run. Now, if we don't make it, that's the business of baseball. That is what it is. You can't argue that. That's how the game works. But what happens if my star player, and keep in mind, star players, they got a lot of trouble in baseball. When you're the best, people like to throw at you. People like to start fights with you because you're the best and you're resented for that. So my star player gets in 2 fights a year because some pitcher threw at him because he didn't like the way he hit a home run off him the last time he was up. In this ecosystem, that star player can miss 4 to 8 games, attending hearings in New York, depending on how far they are from headquarters. If at the end of the year, I've got a player I'm paying $25 million a year to, miss 6 games because of hearings, and I miss the playoffs by 2 games, I guarantee you for the next 10 years of owning that team, I will never stop thinking about the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that I lost because I didn't make the playoffs that year because my star player was in New York at hearings. So let's take a look at some of those revenues. Stadium and ticketing, the average playoff run, $50 million. Okay? Advertising and TV revenue, and this number is going to blow you away, it's going to be staggering, $500 million. Okay? Merchandising, t-shirts, jerseys. This foam J I bought at the playoffs cost $20. It's a piece of foam. Hundreds of thousands of these are sold in every single game. We're talking about another 100 million in lost revenues. And this doesn't even account for what happens if you win it all. Right? Think about the last time your favorite team won a championship. How much stuff is in your house from that championship? How much crap did you buy from that championship? How many videos did you watch? How many television shows did you watch recounting it over the next 10, 20 years? We're talking about billions and billions in potential lost revenue. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the stuff that can be quantifiable. And that number, we're talking about 500, 600, 710 million dollars in potential lost revenue because we have hearings for disciplinary measures that we can't avoid. So before I talk about how we can fix this, I want to talk about the concerns that were laid out to me. Because there were some very serious concerns when I interviewed many of you about virtualizing this workflow, and that's how we're going to do it. What are those concerns? Well, there was a concern about data security. Even though you lose $710 million by losing a playoff run, the fact is if a hearing video were to ever get leaked or a transcript of a hearing, you could lose a lot more than $710 million. But we're also talking about leaked recordings and leaked transcripts. And the last concern that was shared with me was quality. Many of you talked about how a hearing is so important and so critical to the business, and getting it right can be the difference between a team making it and breaking it in that year. That you need to see the whites of those people's eyes when you interview them, when you have when somebody gives testimony. So we have to be able to deliver on something that is very, very clear and very, very high quality. Something that is immersive, something that feels real, and also something that's easy. So let's talk about how, excuse me, how we're going to fix that. Okay, the solution to this problem is to virtualize this workflow. And I'll talk about that. How we're going to do that. We're going to do that using high definition, immersive, high quality video conferencing. We're going to use recording and streaming solutions. And don't worry about what these things mean. When I'm done, you'll understand entirely what we're talking about. We're going to use the cloud to deliver it. And most importantly, we are going to make it easy. And we are going to do that not just for the people using the service, but for the people in headquarters who have to manage and take care of the service. So, just getting another green marker because my other one is dying. This service that we're going to give you to virtualize this workflow, it's going to be in the cloud, okay? It's going to be managed for you. When we are done rolling this out, we are going to turn over a solution to you that just works. We'll give you training and we'll give you support on how to use it, but you're probably not going to need that much of it because we've designed it to be very, very easy. Keeping it up to date, that's our job. Adding capacity one day when your needs change, just pick up the phone and call us. We can scale up the capacity for you overnight. Supporting it, supporting your users, keeping it up. We do that. You do not need to manage that. We've made it easy for both sides of that agreement and of that arrangement. So, let's go back to this diagram now, and let's take a look at the workflow if we virtualize it. The first thing that we're doing, obviously, is all of this bad travel that we're doing becomes virtual meetings happening in, as I said before, rich, high-definition video conferencing. Now, some of you probably don't believe me when I say having video conferences across an entire country with 7 different sites with a bunch of disparate technology in different places and different kinds of users from technical all the way down is actually going to be easy and work. And there's a key thing that we've done here to make that very easy, and that's we've chosen an extremely interoperable solution. And let me take a minute and tell you what I mean by that, because that word can be confusing for some people. What I mean by that is we've put together a solution that, with the exception of one element, which are the clubhouses, which I'll talk about in a moment, nobody else in this ecosystem has to change anything about what they do. And I'll show you what I mean. I just need a couple of different colors for this element of what I'd like you to see, but let's just take a moment here and talk about all of those different people that are in the ecosystem and what they've got, right? So here we've got the video cloud, right? That's what we're standing up for you. That's where all of these meetings will ultimately happen. So we've got the clubhouses, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Those are the stadiums where the players are playing. They're connecting in over a solution that we're going to install into those clubhouses that I'll talk about momentarily. At headquarters, we've got a bunch of different kinds of users. So we've got people who use Skype. And we can let them continue to use Skype. They can join via Skype. There's also a bunch of Cisco units from a previous deployment, which are not the brand that we sell, but we support them, and they work. And all those Cisco units at headquarters, those people who use those Cisco rooms, who've been meeting in them for the last 10 years, guess what? They can walk into those rooms and just use them the way they always have. Nothing out of the ordinary. But we've got a bunch of other people. We've got agents who are on the road. They're on laptops. They can join. We've got lawyers. They're on the phone. They can join. All of these different types of connections and devices that all these different people in the ecosystem have been using for the last couple of years, they can just continue to use. They'll all meet in the cloud and have a meeting, and it will just work the way that they're used to it working. So let's talk about the clubhouses, because that's the one element where we need to do some additions. So what we're going to do to solve the clubhouse challenge, because let's face it, this is all about the players, right? We need to give them an experience that's good for them. In every single ballpark across North America, in both the visitor and in the home clubhouse, we're going to install a video huddle room. Okay, so in all these little places, we're going to put video huddle rooms. Now, what's a video huddle room? It's a room that has technology in it, but guess what? The user doesn't actually know there's technology in it. I can tell you right now, you cannot ask someone who makes $25 million a year to attend a training course how to dial into a video conference. It's not going to happen, right? So we need to make this simple, hands-off, and easy. So in these rooms that we're going to install in all of these clubhouses, they'll be small little rooms. They'll be private, so the player will have the privacy they need. The player will walk into the room, and the system will just fire up and turn on. The TVs will come on. The camera will spin around. They'll see the logo on the screen for the system. They'll know. They'll get that validation that everything is working. No fear. They're good. They're comfortable. They're going to sit down in a chair for their meeting. Call. It's going to go ring, ring, answer, and connect. And there's all the people on the screen. They haven't touched anything yet, right? Now they're in their hearing. The camera, it's going to automatically find them. It's going to automatically frame them and zoom in on them, giving the people on the hearing a nice, close, perfect shot of their face. Again, no interaction by the player. Sound, if that player is animated like me and is angry and gets up and runs around in the hearing, don't worry about it. We're going to put a little microphone on the ceiling that no one's ever going to see. So no matter where they go, whether they yell or they're very quiet and timid, we're going to hear them. So that player now has had the experience that they need for this to work. They walk into a room, just like they would at headquarters. They sit down. They talk to some people, just like they would at headquarters. And they get up and leave at the end. The difference is, when they get up and leave at the end, they're not on the other side of the country and have a day and a half before they get to the ballpark. Back to our initial explanation, that San Francisco game with the Chicago Cubs player, let's work that through again. Player walks into the huddle room 5 minutes before the hearing, 3 hours before the game, and sits down. The lawyer dials in from a laptop. The agent connects in from the telephone. The headquarters people, they just go into their boardrooms that they're always used to doing, and a couple of them join from Skype from their desks. The agent or the owner joins from the video system in his office. They have the hearing, and then everybody goes back to their day an hour later. That player's back on the field. Okay? No lost revenues because of lost player time in this scenario. Now, we're not done yet, because I haven't addressed your concerns. Right? We need to talk about what happens after a hearing. We've solved the live workflow of the hearing, but we haven't solved the data security and the after effects of a hearing, because after a hearing, there's more things that happen. Hearings are recorded currently today. Okay? People record them in a room. There's a camera guy there, and the recording is set up, and then that recording is put on a server at headquarters that people in headquarters can log into and watch those recordings, and that's all that's available to them. They need this. People need to review this content afterwards. We need to simplify this workflow as well. So in the middle of this cloud where all these meetings are going to happen that we've set up for you, we've also included a recording and transcription service in that cloud. All these calls, all these hearings will automatically be recorded. Now, agents, lawyers, owners, players, people who are not in headquarters still need access to that content. This solution has the ability for us to create unique logins and passwords and securely distribute that content without people having to come to headquarters for a watching session. Now, obviously, people can share passwords, and that's something we can't avoid, but everybody in this workflow is in their best interest not to do that. So in all likelihood, we've got a very secure setup here. Now, not only have we deployed a system to solve the lost player and lost revenue, or player time and revenue challenge, but we've also deployed a recording and streaming solution and a content delivery solution. So all of these people have easy access to the content after the fact. Now, what you should also know is that content, one of the cool, nifty things that we can do with this technology for you. Right now, you got a team that's manually transcribing all of these. We can actually automate that workflow as well. So when a hearing is done, that recording will be automatically transcribed. Keywords will be scrubbed from that transcription, and then that recording will be uploaded back into your system with those keywords as searchable keywords. So all these people in the ecosystem can just put in Alex Rodriguez and find the videos that they need to do their job, as well as the transcription. All automated, all built into the process. Now, you talked about security and keeping those recordings in headquarters. One thing that we've done, so this whole service exists in the cloud, and we've secured that in the cloud using data encryption and a whole bunch of technological stuff that I promised I wouldn't talk to you about today. But you still told me you wanted the recordings in headquarters. So even though we can distribute them to the entire network, and even though they're automatically sent from the cloud into the recording server, that recording server, right here, in headquarters, where it's always been, it's just our new recording server. And there's an automated connection from here to there, so those recordings are stored on-premise in your headquarters. The data at rest, the sensitive data, is in your office. The data in motion, which just needs to be encrypted, that can happen in the cloud. So, I think we've covered most of those concerns. We've covered, excuse me, a security concern. I think that we've easily solved the lost revenue problem because we've eliminated, you asked me to reduce, but we've eliminated lost player time. This problem will never happen. Nobody will miss $750 million in revenue or a championship because their star player wasn't on the field. We've done it in a way that addressed your concerns about security and content. We've done it in a way that addressed your concerns about the user's experience and the quality and the players having a simple way to do this, and the people on the other end being able to see what they need to actually give a verdict in a hearing. We've also done it in a way that's easy for every single person within the organization. I don't believe there's anything left out in this that you shared with us other than a flexible way to consume this solution. And ultimately, because it's a cloud-based solution, we can provide you with as-a-service-based pricing on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, or we can stand up the whole network and turn it over to you for a cost and charge you a managed services fee going forward. How we determine that is something we'll figure out down the road. Just know that that flexibility exists. For now, I think we've solved all of these challenges. Saved about $700 million. We virtualized a workflow that people said couldn't be done. And we did it in a way, most importantly, it was easy for everyone by preserving the way that they want to do things in the first place. That's all I have for you. Anyone have any questions? That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. So, like you said, we'll at this point we'll do a round robin and get some feedback, some immediate feedback from everyone here. Or any questions?
I can start off.
Yeah.
I think so. Thank you, Peter. It was a very good presentation. You're very knowledgeable in terms of the business, so that was very impressive. Really enjoyed sort of your storyline. I think you covered it very well. Other than that, I really don't have any other questions. I'll just, if anyone else has anything they want to add.
Jeff, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, so Peter, first of all, I thought it was very thorough. I like the way you laid out the sort of the problem statement, right? So you kind of started with the problem statement and a little bit of sort of setting the table for why you would have to, look at technology instead of talking about technology. Kind of, hey, listen, you got, and I kind of liked your diagram was simplistic, but at least she kind of gave you that graphical illustration of the sort of the the distance and the size of the problem, sort of geographically. You know what? I also really like the fact that you focus much more on a solution. You didn't hear a lot of product names, maybe the odd one here and there slipped in, but very much talking about, I heard a lot. I heard scheduling, I heard content, delivery and recording and that sort of thing. So I thought it was, from that perspective, I thought you did a very good job of kind of talking through the solution versus the bits and bytes and the pieces of it. Obviously in a little bit more real scenario, there'd be more interaction, which is a bit tough on you, right? So I'm sure if this was sort of what I'd call normal presentation, you would or normal customer meeting, you would probably ask a few more questions. I'm a big believer with our team anyway on asking questions, getting feedback, getting dialogue going. But in your case, that wasn't really kind of the way we set this up. So that's not at all on you. So given the fact that it was totally one way, I think you're pretty engaging. You're pretty high energy as well, and you kind of kept the flow going on, through there. Maybe almost a little, quite a bit on sort of the baseball side of things. I think maybe some of your analogies with the numbers were, it's almost like I look at it, and this is like a case study, but a case study in school, right? I remember doing this, like, let's make a bunch of assumptions, and unless somebody really challenges us, we'll say, hey, listen, I don't have any other information. So
they're real numbers.
Yeah, so
you
know what? They seem, they seem big, but you know what? I think in the absence of anything else, I think you got to do that. And if somebody, hey, listen, if it's not 700 million, but it's 658, does it really matter? At the end of the day, those are huge numbers, right? And the travel, the travel isn't just the only thing. So overall, I thought it was very positive. Joe, I'll let you kind of make some comments.
Thanks, Jeff. So I think Jeff kind of laid out a little bit of what I was thinking at the beginning, in that your passion just comes off the screen, Peter, right? It's awesome to watch you in action. It's a lot of fun. The numbers were kind of like mind-blasting for me, and I think that was the point. I'm trying to contextualize that to a real customer we might actually go talk to. Probably not in that sphere number, but hey, it's great to aim high. The solution aspects on easy and cloud interoperability and making the ecosystem all work were all the languages that we hear about at Polycom all the time, right? So as it relates to how we work together and what relationship we've established, not only on this presentation, but our teams working together on standing up Real Connect and infrastructure components and working with other ecosystem partners and so on and so forth. So there's a real strong bond between Pragmatic and Polycom. And when we talked about adding in endpoints in very specific and key locations, it kind of highlighted that those are high quality installations where everybody else can probably use what they already have. So you identify where the important locations were to drive the value of the experience. So I kind of made a note of that. The security conversation was spot on, data in transit, data at rest. I think those are keywords that as a chief security officer or a CTO I'd be looking for to understand as part of the overall value proposition and solution and risk aversion. There's always more in those conversations, Peter. I know it's not appropriate to deep dive. I wanted to. That's where I kind of...
Yeah, of course. Hardest part of this, how to talk about security without getting technical, right? How do you do it? You can't. It's not possible.
Right. And I had to restrain myself because I want to double click on those type of conversations. But as far as the exercise, as far as articulating the value proposition, as far as making the solution easy and taking away all the pain points that my users would have in adopting a new technology, I think you hit all the right pieces. I think this really begets the next level of conversation, right? And I know that it's not a purpose for this exercise, but my whole point coming back to the relationship is we already have those conversations ongoing with prospects that you guys are working on our behalf. And I get emails, a pragmatic win on RP1, and I kind of it's really cool. So I applaud you on that front as well. Our relationship is strong, and this is first one out of the gate in Canada. Well done.
Told you I would be first. Well, I haven't passed yet, but even if you make me do it again, I'll do it again. I'll still be first.
Actually, on that front, are several others nipping hard at the heels. I will be honest with you on that front.
Then you better pass me, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to lose that. You'll crush my soul, Joe, if you fail me today. I'm just telling you. No pressure, bud.
So Peter, just one suggestion that I find is pretty effective when it comes to sort of getting the message across. Say, for example, about security. Hey, how do I? So to answer your question, how do I get the message across that this is secure and kind of alleviate? Probably not the security guys, because they're probably not in the room, and if they are in the room, you're not gonna alleviate them or put them at ease unless they your security guys are there and you go through a whole thing. So I'm not saying that, but the way to kind of check the box off, and Joe and I and some other folks are having a discussion about this sort of thing this morning, is when you reference other accounts who have security needs and you talk about how you're doing this. So just let me throw an example. If you're talking about a bank or whatever, well, actually, we were at a presentation specifically about a security issue with a provincial government, and one of the things we did, we actually had somebody from McKaylee's team up, and he talked a fair bit about other like state and local government that were using the similar sort of solution, and when you do it kind of subtly, then what happens is you give credibility, right? So, okay, so this bank is using it as well. Okay, well, hey, listen, I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to take your word that this bank is using it and tell my security guys they don't need to worry about it. They can just go and do something else. But it's probably going to almost like preempt any objections you might get around, hey, listen, how secure is this? Because you've kind of given them a little bit of preemptive information that helps stay away from that. So anyway.
I could have done the old, this is what we deployed for the NBA last year and the NHL 2 years before that.
Exactly. Oh, those guys are doing it? Okay, well,
yeah.
I'm not too concerned because, it's like Moneris going into a retail place, right? Hey, listen, like every other, retail organization in this mall is using our, POS system. So if you're worried about security, then 90% of companies out there got to worry about security, right? So we kind of do that thing even with our speakerphone sometimes, right? It's like, hey, listen, like if this quality isn't good enough for you, then so pretty much every conference room, that has a speakerphone in this world, would be having problems, kind of thing. So, that's a good point. Okay, so that kind of thing.
Cool, you're right. I should have put that in there. That would have been
just feedback.
Would have made sense.
You know what?
Because I thought a lot about it. I'm like, how do I talk? That's why I talked about the data in motion and data at rest stuff, and ultimately why I put the recording server at headquarters. That putting a recording server in at headquarters was all for the purpose of having a data in motion versus data at rest conversation, only because I've gone through that the last 2 months with our HIPAA compliance exercise, and I've had to listen to my VP talk about a bunch of stuff I don't understand, and when I do understand it, he talks about data in motion and data at rest, and I was able to wrap my head around that. So I wanted to try to work that in, but it would have been a lot easier to just say we deployed it for for 2 other sports leagues, and that would have also addressed that concern.
Yeah, I tend to like to talk about your successes and this maybe is more my style, but this is what I do when I'm talking to customers and frankly even partners, right? I don't necessarily sit there and say, hey, listen, here's all the customers we have and here's how great we are in each one of these customers or whatever. What I do is I usually weave examples of them through my discussion and say, hey, yeah, well, for example, like, we do just, you're talking about this Mr. Customer or whatever, but that's kind of like with like at correctional services, we have, I think they've got about 400 or 500 of our endpoints, and they've been using this tool for that or whatever. So it's kind of, that's more my style, but it's like, oh my gosh, really? So you've got like 500 endpoints at correctional services, and they're using this tool. I only have like 35. So, okay, I guess I'm not so worried about the scalability, the robustness, the, whatever. No one buys 500 endpoints. So with you guys, I think, hey, listen, you know what? When we're managing this customer or that customer, and hey, this customer asked if we could wrap all this up and put it in, give them a custom offering. So, hey, we were able to add in, this feature for them and that feature, whatever. So as you kind of just use examples of that, then it does a few things. It gives you credibility that you're doing business in a bunch of different places in Canada, and that's, once again, I like to talk to, I want to make it sound like as if we're everywhere, right? Like Cisco's not really around much, and hey, we're literally everywhere. And secondly, you're giving them examples of things that maybe, oh, really? Well, why would they want you to do that? Maybe we should look at that as well. So I think, and I'm saying that to you because I think you guys have got a great thing going, but you're not Bell. And you don't tell us.
No,
so
we lean on your brand for that.
Yeah.
We just tell you the story.
So the credibility there is really, hey, we've done, just so you know, and I think that this is something that might be a perception sometimes is, hey, listen, this isn't the first time we've done this. Like, we're not cutting our teeth on your solution here. We've been doing this for a while. We get a lot of big customers, and we're really we got this thing going now. As opposed to, hey, listen, we're just kind of like, you've never heard of us before, and we've never really done this before. So I think the more you talk about that, the more you give and you've got great energy and great passion. So I think the more you give credible, recognizable customer names in there. Once again, you don't necessarily they don't have to be referenceable customers, but the more you drop them, the more credibility you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to leave Kevin out of it. If you have any feedback for us, I don't want to forget the folks who are calling in over audio, right? So I know it's probably hard for you to give feedback without actually seeing the presentation itself. But Kevin, do you have any feedback you can give? If not, that's okay too.
He's muted.
Okay. Well, if so we don't hear back from Kevin, or if he interjects at a later moment, that's okay. But
hey guys,
I just want to wrap this up.
Can you guys hear me now?
Ahead. Yeah. Kevin, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. So it's kind of, I didn't see the whiteboard, but the talk track was fantastic. Peter, I really love the fact that you focused on business requirement to a T. I know you love going deep on the technical, and I could feel you avoiding it at times, which is fantastic because the sales side of this is extremely important to actually really show the business value. So the only question I've got is, after you close the deal, can we get Jay's tickets or what?
Yep. No, of course. This is a mix of a real scenario that I actually got from both Major League Baseball and the NHL. Right, we met with both of them about 3 years ago when we were still working with Blue Jeans, and the NHL, it was the disciplinary hearings thing. That was all for the NHL, bringing all the people to Toronto for the hearings versus traveling and doing them in the stadiums and the clubhouses. And the lost revenue stuff came from Major League Baseball, but it wasn't around disciplinary. And you'll remember this, Richard, from my first presentation. I eliminated it this time. It was negotiations during collective bargaining, and how collective bargaining can draw the business of baseball to a complete halt. Nothing gets done because everybody's moving around, right?
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
Peter, do you have any feedback for us in this process? Again, like you said, this is a first time doing a Canadian AM for Badged, and there's others to follow. It's also continuous improvement on our side too, so if you have any feedback to share, we'd love to hear it.
No, not really. We had enough prep, which was important, right? You need to give people enough prep time, and I think a lot of people are going to need more practice, and this program accounts for that. I would have preferred, much to Richard's disagreement, to have prepared a nice Prezi presentation or PowerPoint to display my whiteboard, because gosh darn it, I hate whiteboarding, and it's just an awkward and uncomfortable thing for me. But that's just me. I asked him, he wouldn't let me. He made me whiteboard it, so I did. But you would have been way more blown away if that was a professional presentation, because you would have had logos popping up and little flying planes and, you know, little dollar signs coming out of the exhausts of the planes and stuff like that. It would have been pretty funny.
Well, there's no extra credit for wow factor, right, Peter?
Yeah, it's all wow factor.
Not for this format, at least.
So, no, I don't think so. I like the process. I like that it's collaborative. I like that it's a panel presentation. I think that, you know, and I never thought about it until today, but finding a way to build interactivity into it, I think would be great, because you're right. I think, Joe, you mentioned it. It's a little unnatural. I mean, that's the longest I would have ever talked in a meeting environment in my life without somebody else talking. I usually ask a question and let them talk for 20 minutes. So I would suggest that either you incorporate some interactivity into the presentation, or you add a needs analysis element to the program. In other words, somebody's got to conduct a needs analysis and you be the customer and they be the salesperson, right? Something like that. Questioning and learning and listening is so important. Being able to ask the right questions, and that part isn't accounted for. Otherwise, no.
I see that as a level too. It's almost like if you were able to have a scenario, do a needs analysis on the spot, and then whiteboard from it. So if you collect enough information, at least a preliminary whiteboard, maybe not to that detail, but that would be another, I think.
Oh, you mean
that's
slide? Oh shit,
that's
yeah,
good
like
point,
too?
right?
Yeah, that'd be
But
great.
I think
nobody would
so.
pass
That's a good program for a research, right? So after 2 years, a research would be a nice step
Thanks,
up
bud.
from that. Keep in mind the first round is to make sure that you understand the Polycom solutions, right? So when we did the kickoff, we spent a lot of time on the technology, the deep dive, making sure that you understand how everything kind of fits together. That's how you are able to come to this conclusion of offering a high-level solution, right? So with that said, we're almost at the hour mark. I don't want to extend this longer than it needs to be. But thank you very much.
One more piece of feedback. One more piece of feedback. You should give a free codec just like you do in the SE one to AMs.
Well, actually, my rebuttal was that I'm looking forward to taking someone from your team to that SE discussion, Peter. I think it's, you guys are right in the wheelhouse. It won't take long. Let's do it.
Yeah.
310 acoustic.
Yeah, I mean, I could use a 310 acoustic on my desk. I'm not gonna lie, it'd be nice.
Yeah, let's do the
We
SE
did a
program.
survey. We did a survey among the sales team out in the field, and they prefer the discounts over equipment. But the majority of the SEs would want the equipment over discounts. Right.
Oh, I want both.
Point taken.
everything.
We'll see what we can do. But certainly appreciate you putting in the time and the effort. Your presentation
Thanks, guys.
certainly comes across very nicely. You hit all of the points, and just my last feedback here regarding the high numbers. Right, we're talking about $710 million. I know why you did it. I think the point is to drive across the pain point. Right, the pain point you want us to feel. The ouch, right? The hurt that the MLB is bleeding from a money perspective, right? Nothing hurts more in the business world than bleeding money, right? So I get that, and I like how you hit the challenges, you hit the solutions, and then you circle it back, you wrap it up with the challenges again, so that we're clear. The solution that you're resolving, you're helping the MLB resolve, right? So very nicely done with your presentations. I will gather up all of the grading sheets from everyone here, and we'll let you know as soon as possible, right? So I know I'm just saying 4 days. We'll try to make it sooner. It's just based on when Sean O'Connor can get back into his office to send out whatever email messages he needs to send out.
All you need to do, Richard, buddy, is when you send this to Sean O'Connor, just tell them the guy you had dinner with at Jacobs needs this done. It'll get done, man. I'm telling you. Trust me.
All
Sean
right.
O'Connor, say that. He'll get it. He'll know what we're talking about.
Got it. Got it. All
All
right.
right,
He'll be
thanks
watching
a lot,
this
guys.
for
What
you
he's
too. So you just sent that message to him already. Thank you
Peter's
very
three
much.
still built.
Everyone have a good
Cheers.
day. Thank you.
Have a great one,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank
Yeah.
you.